So we're gonna trim our fluted rim bowl. We have a finishing sponge, a loop trimming tool, a red rib, a pin tool, and some coils of clay to hold our bowl to the vat. What you see here is the bat actually has circles drawn on with a large Sharpie marker. This will give you an idea of where it's going to be in center. It's not always perfect. This will give us a generalized idea of where we need to be, and then we can adjust with our pin tool on top. So let's get started. So before I flip my bowl over onto the bat, I want to kind of take a look and feel where the thickness is. So I have my finger on the outside, on the inside, and I'm just going to kind of move up the wall so I can get an idea. It's pretty thin and it's pretty even until about here where it starts getting a little bit thicker. So I know my foot can start about here, and I want to move in at least to about here for that interior. So this here is our wiggle room. And it'll make more sense when we start to actually turn it upside down. So I'm going to lay it upside down, and then we will start to trim. Alright, so I'm going to take the guides that I've drawn onto my bat. This is my own personal bat. If you buy a bat, you can definitely draw some lines. Some of our bats over there are black bats, and the lines from the Sharpie marker doesn't really show. The newer speedball bats that we bought that are brown or blue, they have lines on them. If they don't and you want lines drawn on them, bring them to one of our staff so we can put that on there for you. They wear off pretty quickly, so you just have something you're just gonna have to keep redoing. So I've kind of drawn these on, and I'm gonna lay these down, and I'm gonna angle so you can see how it looks more like a crescent still out there. So I'm gonna move until it covers everything. Now I know that it seems like the rim is a little delicate, or it's a little bit off. I only fluted out the edge, so that interior rim, so this interior rim here is still pretty level, so it doesn't really matter. If it ends up being something really delicate, then we can get out the foam bat to trim on, but that's a little on the tricky side. So there's no coils holding my piece down. I'm going to take and make a peace sign. Middle finger goes in the middle of my pot, finger goes on my tool, my trimming tool. My pinky that I hold my pin tool in is going to ride on the side. So I'm going to slowly start to turn my wheel on, and I'm going to draw a very, very faint line, something that I'll be able to erase with my finger in the long run. So you can see it's a little bit smaller over here than it is in this area, so I'm going to move it towards that space. I'm going to take my finishing tool, or I keep saying finishing tool, finishing rib, and I'm going to do it again just to double check. So now that line seems to be a little bit more even all the way around. Let's give it one little, it's a little bit thicker here. There we go. So now I'm going to take my coils, my 4 coils, north, south, east, and west. And before I push them up against my piece, I'm going to softly push down. And I don't want to push inward. I'm literally wrapping this around and pushing straight down. It'll kind of walk itself around. So I'm going to define this outside edge first. if I do this interior first and I come all the way out too far, and then I don't like this foot that's on the profile and I go in too much, I'm going to trim off that entire bottom. So I want to make my borders first. So kind of think of the rim of the foot as kind of like the fence, so you know where to stop at. So I'm going to push in first, and I'm literally just pushing inward, and that clay should just coil right off. That's when you know it's at the right dryness. Wheel is a little bit on the slower side. So when we're centering our piece, when we're first throwing, full speed ahead. Then we throw, we slow it down a little bit, and then for trimming, we're going to slow it down even more. Sometimes I'm a little bit of a lead foot when I trim, but trust me, you want to start slow. So I've made that defining edge. Now I have this weird like ledge that doesn't match with the side of the pot. So you can see it just kind of looks like a step. Now you can add that to your pot on purpose. There's some powders that will do that, but I want to go ahead and smooth it in. So I started with the smaller point pushing inward. Now I'm going to take that and rotate that down, and then I'm just going to roll and rock it down. So pivoting, and then I'm going to slowly smooth that into the wall. So I'm rolling my tool back and forth. My finger is my pressure, and my direction is how I roll the tool and my fingers back and forth. Just a little bit more. So now, if one thing that you can do if you want to check what it looks like, you can put a small bat or a bat that you have and look upside down, like turn your head upside down and pretend like this is the table. So then you don't have to take it off and turn it upside down and see if you like what you're seeing. It's so funny, when I first started trimming, I absolutely hated that. I hated to trim. I would put it off. I hated trimming more than I hated glazing. And now it's one of my favorite things to do. I can sit here and sometimes I'll trim through a pot just because it's so fun to just watch that coil just kind of peel off. Alright, so now I want to erase that top so I can have a nice little blank canvas to start from. And how thick do I want my foot? I want my foot to be about that thick, right? That seems about right. So that's going to be my border. I'm not going to move out and take that out. So I'm going to push down and reinforce that edge. Now, like a needle on a record, I'm going to start on the outside and I'm going to move in slow. So every time there's a revolution made, I'm going to go ahead and move inward. If I move in fast, what happens? It makes a spiral. So I don't want a spiral. I want it to be consecutive circles. So I'm going to start. There goes that lead foot of mine, so slow it down. And so I don't want my tool to ever have to catch on the other side. So we're going to pretend that there is an invisible line right down that median. My tool is going to move over, and my tool might touch over, like here, but my point of contact is still on to the right of that line. It doesn't catch over here. The clay is moving away from me, so I'm scraping it. If that clay touches my tool on here, it's going to jam my tool towards me. So I don't want that to happen. And it's in this moment that you realize the above camera never actually recorded. So it's all on that camera. So I'm going to round this out. I don't want this too flat right here. So I'm going to angle in and then angle towards it. So there's less. There's less surface touching my table. You can come in and you can test. So you can see, if I were to leave it as it is, there's no space between the bottom and what would be like the countertop or a table. So I can't glaze it. So if I really, I'm gonna double check, I'm gonna tap. If it sounds hollow like a watermelon, you wanna stop. I'm gonna push just a little bit. Take a little bit more off, just so there's a nicer profile. I still won't be able to glaze it. There's not enough room to glaze. Use my red rib as a little bit of a finishing sponge to kind of burnish my finger marks out. And there we go. And we're going to roll back our clay coils. So peel off, you can lift up and off. If your rib has been compromised a little bit, you can come back in with that finishing rib and smooth that out.